All right. So thank you everyone for coming. As we told you, we do have a guest speaker this week. It is Jessica Biasy, who I'll turn it over to here in just a second. I did want to introduce her a little bit. She's going to talk a bit about her career to begin with and kind of the use of public relations and communication in general in that career. But I want to give you a little bit of background on her. Um, she's had a very varied career, and I think a really interesting one. She served as Director of Public Affairs for the National Quilt Museum. She was the development extension facilitator for the Peace Corps in Tanzania. She was communications and programming strategist for Alliance of Haiti's Children, operations manager for the United Way of the Bluegrass, development director for Central Kentucky Riding for Hope, development manager for CASA of Lexington, and then her current position, which is grant program manager for the Living Arts and Science Center, also in Lexington, Kentucky. So we're very happy to have her here, let her kind of talk to us about her career with communication and public relations. And then, of course, at the end, we'll have some time for some Q&A. So if you have questions, think about those. And then after she's done talking, we'll turn it over to you and let you ask your questions. But without further ado, Jessica, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So glad to be with you all this evening. I can't believe it's already been 20 years whenever Justin and I were at Murray State, kind of in your seats trying to decide where we were going. And I don't know about Justin, but I really struggled in the beginning because I felt like, especially like public relations, communications, could go so many different directions, especially so my undergrad is agriculture communications. And so with that I was an actual agriculture major through the ag department, and I did all the core ag classes, but then I also took courses in public relations, and was involved in PRSSA too, and then also journalism, and some marketing classes. So I was interested in all of it. I really could have gone journalism. I was part of me wanted to move off and be this, fast-paced journalist. And then I was also interested in working for a PR agency, because I think that's kind of what people automatically think about whenever you think about what your future is going to be. But especially as you can see from my resume, that there's a lot of different ways that you can go within the nonprofit world, with public relations, communications degree and background. With myself, I've found that I think my PR education, along with just the type of personality that I have that led me to be interested in studying PR, really helped in making way to do marketing. With marketing promotions, you kind of learn how to tell a story, and that helps with your writing skills. And so a lot of that helps. I remember taking the classes with, well, I was going to start remembering my professors, but I remember y'all are at SIU, and you probably don't know the same people I'm thinking of. But, but yeah, I mean, with public relations, as far as I mentioned with the writing, but also with working with people, I think as I have really enjoyed the public affairs work that I did with the National Quilt Museum in Paducah, and now with development and fundraising, I think that a lot of my skills really tie together nicely in being able to communicate with our donors, and be able to tell that story about what our organization is accomplishing and what we're providing the community, so that those people are understanding what they're support is going to, and the impact that they are actually having with their own dollars. So I think that there's definitely, you know, it's not always the big money that draws you to nonprofit work, but you can definitely feel like you're having this incredible um, impact on the world and connection with your community. One of the things I wanted to mention that has really helped me in getting just about all of the positions that Justin listed was really being involved in the community. And I think that really kind of goes hand in hand with the jobs that are connected to having a PR degree, is being involved in different um, civic organizations, whether it's like your Rotary Club or Lions Club, or getting involved right out of college. There's just about anywhere you go, there's going to be young professional groups that you can get involved with. We actually started something in Paducah that didn't really last much longer after I left, but that's not to say that wherever you go, you can create something too, because there's always young professionals out there who are looking to meet other people and get to know and establish some roots within their communities. Um, I was also thinking, um, depending on what your organization is, you can get involved within the industries organizations. Within the Quilt Museum, I was able to go out and get attend meetings with the Tourism Society for the state and the arts and organizations. There's always lots of different professional societies that you can get involved with. Here in Lexington, I've gotten involved with the professional fundraisers group, and that's really helped in knowing what other organizations are doing so that we can network and share ideas and share motivation, because it's not always the easiest job working in fundraising and working in nonprofits in general. So it's great to be able to have those people that you can knock around ideas with, but then also call whenever you're just having a rough day, and they're going to understand and help you work through that hardship that you're having, and be able to, come out stronger.
Jessica, you mentioned the job at the National Quilt Museum, and as I recall, and on your resume, it kind of listed as your like first major job post college. And I'm sure you were doing other things in between there, but I think that's the sort of job that a lot of our students coming out of a public relations background maybe is not their first thought of the job that they'll get. But is actually like a really great job to get, so soon out of college. You got that job.
Yeah.
Could you kind of tell us like maybe how you got the job? I don't know if it was just a random application, and then kind of like what that job entailed, because I don't think a lot of people probably know the National Quilt Museum is a big deal in Paducah.
Yeah.
It doesn't maybe sound like that big of a deal, a quilt museum, but it actually is a fairly big deal in that area.
Yeah, and that's something actually it's a really great question to dig into, because whenever I started at the Quilt Museum, my position was actually program manager. So I got in and started working with the workshops that we had, doing of different events that we were planning. And then just by chance, the public affairs director at the time had to leave And so, and before they were able to replace that person, and I wanted that experience because I had, had the PR background and really enjoyed the writing aspects of those type of jobs. So my kind of got had my job combined with that job and became programs and communications manager. And so I was able to do both for a bit, and then got promoted up as time went on to have the official director of public affairs title. So I think that's something to just always be thinking about too, is that you may not automatically get that job that you're wanting, or that dream job, but you never know. Just getting your foot in the door can really lead um, to more. And yeah, I actually did know about Justin, but graduated in 2002. So it was kind of a hard time with the job market. My first job out of college was actually selling coupons door to door. So it definitely got me out of my comfort zone and helped me get over any fears of rejection, because it's definitely a numbers game whenever you're doing sales, just trying to get to as many people as you can, and try to make those sales. And I think it really wasn't always fun, but it definitely kind of added character and gave me um, the experience talking with people and starting conversations that's actually really impacted me later in life. Uh, yeah.
So the Quilt Museum, one of the things that I think is really interesting is the annual quilt show, which is in April in Paducah. Um,
Mhm.
People outside of Paducah don't always know this, but I've been all over the country, and people who are into quilting know that quilt show, and they
Yeah.
know Paducah, and it
Yeah.
brings something like, and you probably know the numbers better than I do, but something like 30,000 people from around the world
Mhm.
descend onto Paducah for that
Yeah.
week to go to the quilt show. Um, how did that? I don't know how you at the museum, which is downtown Paducah, right around where the quilt show is. How was that? Just being in that week with so many people and so much going on. Like, how did you all manage that?
Yeah, I think it's so much fun. I don't know about you all, but I kind of thrive and get energy off of being surrounded by big groups, and the excitement of an event like that. It definitely is a lot of work leading up to, and that's what I kind of think is fun about planning events, is that you're then able to see all of your work and stress, the fruition of it all, and being able to really be proud of yourself for laying all the groundwork that then leads to, with the quilt show, it's 30,000 people coming in, just about doubles the size of Paducah. At the time, we used to joke. I don't know now; they have several other shows. Um, but one of the things that, to clarify, the there's the Quilter Society, and they're the ones that actually run the show. But we, as the museum, would still get most of the people, same people that came in for the show, would come in for to see the exhibits that we had. But then also, I was in charge of an auction that went several days, a silent auction, and then we had a big live auction also. So starting in, let's see, just about September of the year before, we would start sending out mailers to a lot of the quilt stores and vendors to be able to get donations from them for the show that would be then in April. So a lot of these type of events and activities that come into these kind of jobs take a lot of organizational skills, a lot of um, experience with just basic computer programs. Like Excel was something that we used pretty simply. And now working with nonprofits and fundraising, whenever we have auctions, we'll do a lot of it online. So instead of entering all the information into an Excel and merging it onto sheets to print out for people to do by hand, we're doing it online where people can download an app and make their bids through their phone. So those are sort of things that it's just good to have skills in and to be considerate of.
Um, the next thing listed on your resume was you joining the Peace Corps and going to Tanzania.
Yeah.
And I've had students and other friends who have joined the Peace Corps previously, and I think for every single one of them, it's been sort of terrifying when they did it at first, and it really is especially knowing where you grew up and knowing your background and everything. I'm sure that was a big culture shock and everything initially. How do you feel that doing that has benefited you long term in your career and everything? I mean, obviously it was a unique experience, but what sort of benefits did you get from working in the Peace Corps and traveling overseas as part of that?
Yeah, that was really hard decision for me initially. So to give you a little backstory, I actually started the application process a few years prior to when I actually went. I was right after selling coupons. I moved to Texas and worked for a horse breed association that quickly downsized after I got there. So I had moved back to Paducah, and as Justin said, the Quilt Museum really was my first strong professional job where I was really able to spread my wings and get a lot of experience. But I was still thinking back to the Peace Corps, and had been one of those things I just kind of put back in my mind because my family had kind of talked me out of it whenever I first started looking into it. So I was just like, oh, it's something I could maybe do after retirement. And then I was about to turn 30, and I was really thinking about how quickly life was going and not even though I really enjoyed my job and was involved in a lot of stuff around Paducah, it really still wasn't quite where I wanted to see my life trajectory going for over the next few years. So I went ahead and just decided one morning that if I was going to do it, I just needed to do it. I didn't have a lot of commitments weighing me down. One big thing I had was a cat that broke my heart to give away, but I knew she went to a good home. I had a washer and dryer that was my big, adult purchase, thing that I had that I was like, what do I do with this washer and dryer? But, I just sold it to the people that moved in after me in my apartment and those kind of things, they're just, things and you can work around that. So the best decision I say is that I've ever made is doing the Peace Corps. It was the first time I'd ever been outside of the US. I had traveled a lot within the and I was just ready for something that was going to shake up my life. And it really did open my eyes to a world outside the little Western Kentucky bubble that I'd spent most of my life in, and realized how different people's troubles are, not to downplay any issues that you've all experienced throughout your life. But it really opened my eyes to seeing how life could be in a rural village in Tanzania where I was, where, like some kids had to walk a mile or so from their home to the school. There were no school buses that were going going around the village to pick kids up. They had to get there themselves. Sometimes it was really hard for families to pay to pay the school fees. So, that was another thing that would be a deterrent for some of the kids to be able to attend school. So, we just don't realize really how just lucky, like, I mean, there's really nothing but luck that makes it just so that we were born here in the US as compared to being born somewhere else. And that was one of the things that, I kind of started went and did Peace Corps thinking, oh, it's just 2 years, I'll come right back. And because I really did enjoy the tourism aspect of my job at the Quilt Museum and working within the tourism industry. I was like, oh, I'll just come back and jump right back to that world and that job. And it really changed where I was wanting to go. And so having had that professional experience, and one of the things with the Peace Corps that I had that professional experience, a professional life in the U.S. where my calendar was pretty much filled up to almost to the minute during the workday. And whenever you first get to the village that you're placed in, it's just you in the village. There's, might be another volunteer in the next village, or they may be miles and miles down and away from you. But so it's up to you to get to know and make those relationships and build trust. And so that's what Peace Corps says whenever you first get to your site, within those first 3 months to even a year, they just don't even want you really doing a lot of work. They just want you out making those relationships and building trust so that in your second year, you can get a lot more achieved. So that was really hard for me because I had been so busy. And so I got to teaching in a primary school, a conservation / environment class. And it was great, and got to work with a women's group. I actually, one of the biggest lessons that I like to share from my experience with Peace Corps was when I, had first gotten there, and I did a survey with some of the villagers and heard from someone that they wanted a women's group. And I was like, great. I knew that was a fairly common project within the Peace Corps volunteers, and so I was like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and get this started. I can put forth some of my money to get a project going. And I kind of, presented some ideas and really pushed towards having a new garden that would be able to grow some different vegetables that was being sold in the market. Because primarily there was just tomatoes and some greens and onions, whereas just an hour down the road in the main city, you could get just about, because I was in a really good area of Tanzania as far as agriculture goes. So they could really grow anything. So I was trying to get that project off the ground, but it was all because of me and my pushing forward. And so it just kind of fell apart and didn't really succeed. And it was a lesson in knowing who the beneficiaries are in a project that you do, and making sure that there's ownership with them, that any ideas that a nonprofit or an organization is doing, you're thinking about what they're needing and not just pushing something on them. So later, another group of women came to me, and they had been doing a mushroom project and wanted help in their production of mushrooms. And so I knew that we had these, basically kind of a blueprint of a structure that they could build that was made up of grass and bamboo, and you could add water on the outside of the roof that would add moisture inside and help with growing the mushrooms. So help them in a way that was more of a facilitator and let them kind of lead the project. And it was amazing. It was one of like my best memories of my time in Tanzania, was really working with these ladies and seeing the commitment and the drive. And one thing also was that this group was already established, so they already had a lot of trust and knowledge of each other. So that helped the success of the project as well. So it was just definitely something that I learned to take on with me. And I realized this was a bad thing. Don't get me started on Peace Corps, because I could fill up the whole next 3 hours on how great it was. But so one thing just to kind of lead into was that since I'd had that professional experience in the US, I wanted to also have a professional experience in Tanzania. And so I extended a 3rd year in order to live and work within a city and with an NGO, which is non-governmental organization, similar to nonprofits.
So going from that, post the Peace Corps, you did a few things with different nonprofits, but then kind of have transitioned into more the development area. Could you maybe talk about, and I know you mentioned a little earlier, being able to tell a story and being able to write well has benefited you a great deal. Could you tell us a little bit more about how your background in communication and public relations has really helped that transition into development, and maybe how you use those skills, on a regular basis in the work that you've done your last couple of jobs?
Yeah. So, with whenever I came back and did a master's degree to kind of tie everything in, and really wanted to get more into working with nonprofits that are providing a service to the community, as far as opposed to the Quilt Museum, where it's more of a tourist destination. Um, I got to thinking about what route I wanted to take. And one of the things I knew about was that really the marketing and public relations uses the same skills as development. However, the development and fundraiser positions tend to be a little bit higher paid. And so I was kind of coming into that point of my life where I realized that money is a little bit more important than I realized in my 20s, and that I probably do need to start thinking about retirement and healthcare and all of that. So, so I really kind of started applying more to those development positions, and really enjoyed, as always, I may have mentioned already, is the writing aspects of jobs, where I'm able to kind of provide awareness and education to the community about what the organizations are providing the communities. So I really feel like a lot of my skills that I've gotten through public relations was the strength of telling a story of verbally, as far as, but then also written. I think that, there's definitely ways that you, little things like I remember one of our public relations classes was providing like a blueprint of what we were providing guests coming into an educational, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it was something where we provided, a media kit. We provided a packet of materials so that they got to know what the organization was about. And I feel like all of those things can be very transferred over to working with donors, and whether it's just like going out to talk to an individual that's giving anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, or to an organization that is going to be able to sponsor hundreds of thousands of dollars. You've got to be able to have that confidence and knowledge in your organization in order to be able to basically just provide the information. It's not even much of a sales pitch, as far as just providing this opportunity to people to be a part of something really great that your organization is doing. And I feel like that's a big thing that I learned through public relations.
Great, thank you. We do have some questions from students, and I wanted to get to some of those and give them a chance to ask some of their questions.
Yeah.
So I don't
Sorry, I've
know.
been rambling.
No, you've been great. It's just we don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm sure they have enough questions that could keep you here for 2 or 3 hours.
No, that's fine.
But I'll turn it over if some of you want to ask your questions, and then even if they're ones you've already submitted in chat, if you'd like to ask them to her, and then the ones that don't ask questions, we can read some of these questions and address them. But does anybody have
I did ask you, I'm gonna just repeat myself in the chat, which was, how soon should I be searching for jobs? Because, well, I'm gonna be graduating 2000 and something. I actually really don't know, but how soon is too soon?
Definitely, I think you can always get professional experience. Like, it's never too early. One of the things I did right away as I was thinking, first got in, because I actually started my undergrad as a pre-vet major, realized I was not good at the sciences. I really preferred writing and talking to people. So as soon as I realized that and switched my major, I got to talking to one of my professors about interning with an organization that he was connected with. So I was able to get that summer internship. I came back and did an internship with the local hospital in Murray. And then I did my senior year, I worked with the development office at the local NPR station on campus. So I think being able to have all of that experience, I think really catapulted me and gave me a good resume to start out with and looking for those first jobs. I think it's great to be able to get those good grades and everything, but I kind of focused a little bit more on getting the real world experience. And not that my grades were horrible, but I think that it really helped and would highly recommend that.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions?
I had a question. I had a few actually.
Yeah.
I wanted just to know, like, because I was interested for a while in non-for-profit work, and I just wanted to know, like, how you kind of got started in non-for-profit work after graduating, or what steps you kind of took.
Yeah. So it's funny because you can go, like we've talked about with just communications in general, you can go different ways. And within different nonprofits, you can go different ways. I think for me, it was one, I got into my internship was with the Horse Breed Association because I grew up riding horses, specifically quarter horses, and I interned with the Quarter Horse Association. And I think it really like that was actually where I expected to go right out of undergrad. And it's just, whenever the job market is bad, it's kind of controls where you go also. But I think for me coming back after Peace Corps, I'm looking for jobs and I'm able to look for the things that really excite me most. So like education, I've touched on kind of how seeing the education in other countries really impacted me, and I came back and really wanted to work with organizations that provide programming and curriculum enrichment. And so that's actually what I'm doing now, is writing grants for Living Arts and Science Center.
Okay, and then I didn't want to ask, like, did you ever have like a moment where you felt lost after you graduated, like where you just kind of felt like you didn't know if you were doing the right thing, or?
I'm pretty sure that was about every day I was walking the roads selling coupons, but it definitely, like, even whenever I came back, and I loved my time in Paducah. It was also, I never expected to be that close to home. I'm originally from Hickman County, if anybody is familiar with Western Kentucky. But very tiny area, and I was like excited to see the world. And so coming back, and I think it was nice to have that time at the Quilt Museum, and to really kind of get my base and spread my wings and all those terms that mean that you're learning and growing. And I think that getting that kind of experience in the beginning and not getting too bombarded or down on yourself for not automatically getting your dream job is important too. Not to discount, just getting experience anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a Peace Corps question for you, because I know personally that was like my dream when I came to SIU as a freshman. Like, I looked it up with my roommate, and we were like dead set that we were going to go into the Peace Corps together after graduation.
Yeah.
And I know personally for me, like, one of the biggest fears I have is that a lot of their jobs are like education or like social work type based jobs.
Yeah.
And that is not what I'm getting my major in at all. And so as like a fellow communications major, did you have like any concerns prior to going in that like you'd be overwhelmed or like wouldn't know what you were doing because of like that lack of like educational coursework or background?
Yeah. No, I think, that, it might be good to have some of that background, but for me, so this is kind of funny too. I started the Peace Corps application process thinking I wanted to go to Eastern Europe and work more in like business development in a more progressive area. And then and you put in 3 options, and Sub-Saharan Africa was not in any of my 3. So I was a bit surprised, but I think because of my agriculture background, they wanted me in Sub-Saharan Africa. And I went ahead, because I was already like too gung-ho that I was going to do this, and I was committed. And I cannot imagine going anywhere else. It's one of those things that, the experience that you get is what you put into it, and you're going to have a great time anywhere you go. But I also say Peace Corps gives really great training and support to the volunteers, even though sometimes you feel like you're alone out in the village, but you've got great support that you can call on. Going the setup is a little bit different country to country, but for me in Tanzania, I got to country with a group of about 40 other volunteers, and they like become, your tight unit. Like it's 40 people, but you become like, everything. You even know like what clothes everybody has, because, you're pretty much wearing the same clothes over and over. But with that, the first 9 weeks, you're learning the language together before you get placed out in the village. So you're learning a lot about the culture and the language. So you're not just put out immediately off the plane by yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, contact me if you have any other questions.
Will do, definitely.
This isn't Fortnite. They're not just flying over and dropping you with a parachute into the country. Like, goodbye, good luck.
Goodbye. See you in a year.
We probably have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, if we have a couple more questions.
I have one more actually. I just kind of wanted to know, like, how many jobs did you apply for until you got like your first stable job?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say they apply for so many, but some people say they apply for a few and they just get it right away.
Yeah. That's something I was just talking to someone about recently, because my current job, I applied probably 50 different jobs. And that's even with the experience that I already had, but I was also applying worldwide. So I think whenever you have a more smaller base, like of what you're looking for, you may get something quicker. But it's also a really, you've probably heard the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I think that really does play a big part into landing a job quickly. And I've been on both sides of that, where I didn't get the job because I didn't know the right person, but then I've also gotten jobs that where my networking had helped me get my foot in the door at least. So it definitely, again, it's great to do internships and to network, join all the organizations that you can. Is my advice.
Yeah, and I would back that up. In my career, I don't know that there's ever been a time when I was transitioning to a new job where I didn't apply for 30 or more jobs at least.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the issues sometimes when students are looking for that first job out of college. They want to apply for 2 or 3 jobs because those are the 2 or 3 jobs that sound really great, right? And the reality is you may apply for 50 jobs and only get calls from 5 of those.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to cast that wide net. And even when you're fairly, far along in your career, like you are or I am, like that's still a reality, because there's all sorts of reasons maybe you're not getting that call back.
And that's really, really important to like hear from us, and just to remember is not to get too down on yourself, because it can be, looking for a job is a job within itself, and it can be really hard on your self-esteem to be applying for 50 jobs and only hearing back from 5. But it's everybody's going through it.
All right, do we have any final question? We probably have time for one last question.
I got a question.
Hi.
All right.
So I'm African, so like hearing that you went to Africa was really cool, because I haven't been yet. But how important would you say it was to travel outside of like where you've lived and experience life? Like, because when I was younger, I went to London when I was younger. I got family in Europe, and I feel like that gave me a lot of perspective in the world, more so than I thought it did when I was younger.
Yeah,
I see it now, and when I talk to like my contemporaries or peers, they don't really get it because they haven't experienced it. So, how important would you say, like, and it doesn't even have to be internationally, but just traveling to different places and not being afraid? Because when I graduate, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know if I'll leave Illinois or not, but it's like, I probably will have to eventually. So how important would you say that is?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I would say it's like 10 out of 10 important. Like it changed my whole view of the world, really. Like, and like you said, like that's one of the things I always try to say to people whenever they even just want to feel like they're giving back to the world and serving someone, that isn't quite in the luckiest of situations as they are. You don't have to go into Peace Corps. You don't have to go to some, developing country to really give back. Like there's experiences within the US for travel, and giving back within your own community as well. It really, I think, opened my eyes. As I said, just coming back, and I served 2010 to 13, so that was in Obama's heyday. Everybody, not to get too political, but everybody was pretty supportive of American politics and government during my time abroad. And then I came back and realized not everybody in the US shared those experiences, and I had a lot of people, like parents of friends who I knew on, followed on Facebook, were posting a lot of things that really shocked me and hurt me a bit. Like I was really disappointed that these people I respected didn't quite share the things, that the beliefs that I did anymore. And I do try to not get too political on like Facebook stuff. But as Justin probably has blocked me by now after this election, but I do try to, share some things. And I just try to be like educational in a way that sheds light on another perspective for people to see. Because I think that I can definitely tell a difference between my friends when I talk to them that have gotten out and traveled within the US or international, and the people that are still within the Western Kentucky bubble. And even within their making decisions within their own lives, I was really kind of down on where I was in my life, my health, before I did Peace Corps. And I just kind of took that jump and made that change in my life. And then I came back after 3 years and talked to some of my friends who were complaining about the same problems they were dealing with 3 years before. And I just wanted to shake them. I wanted to be like, just make that change. It can be really hard to do, but in the end, it can be really worth it. So, and also something big I'd like to say too is, it's, you don't ever feel like you're too committed down one path, because I think that was something I worried about before doing Peace Corps. And I was always really focused on work and thinking that once I had started professionally down one path, that was going to be my trajectory for the rest of my life. And being able to just like take a step back and realize I'm not where I want to be, and assess what it is I need and want and what can get me there, was really worth doing. So, not to get preachy, but just some thoughts.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good luck anywhere you go.
Well, I can assure you, I have not blocked you on Facebook, but there are other people I have certainly blocked on Facebook during this election cycle. I think one of the things that, as we're wrapping up here, I would really like to kind of emphasize is that, when Jessica talks about coming from a small town, she came from a very, very small town, much smaller than, Carbondale or, Chicago, where a lot of you are from, obviously. And, to get out and like experience the world from that, it's very easy for a lot of people to stay in that bubble their entire life. And, that takes a lot of courage, sometimes, almost like reckless courage to get out and experience the world. But, you look at, I think, her career, and, I sent her LinkedIn profile to all of you. And you look over that, and it's really a diverse career. And I think, one of the points that she's made is being able to evolve and change through that career. And when you look at her career, it's not I graduated college, I went to work for a company and spent 40 years there and retired. It's been a lot of different transitions that have opened up new, really unique and kind of cool opportunities. So I think that's worth taking away, because that's something that I know I was scared of. When I was an undergrad and getting ready to graduate, there was part of me that looked at it and thought, well, this job, whatever job I get, has to be the job I'm working 40 years from now. And that was kind of what my parents and my grandparents had done. And, realizing that it's a different world now, and you don't necessarily have to follow that same path anymore. Can sometimes be kind of intimidating and pretty scary, actually. But I do want to thank Jessica. Thank you for your time. Thank you for, volunteering the time to come talk to us and everything and share your experiences and everything. I know you said students could reach out to you. Is probably the best way to do that via LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's probably the easiest. Sorry. with Zoom, I'm not able to hand out business cards, but just look me up on LinkedIn and add me. I'd be glad to talk.
Yeah, and I think particularly for some of you who are interested in going to nonprofits and those of you interested in traveling and getting involved Peace Corps and that sort of thing, that would be certainly worthwhile. So if we could we please give a round of applause to Jessica and thank her for her time and everything.
Well, thank you. And applause to you all for taking the initiative to, listen to some stranger speak for a little bit so that you can kind of get some ideas about your future.
Well, thank you. And with that, I think we'll end this meeting and everything. For everyone else, we will see you back here after Thanksgiving. Obviously, we have next week off, but if you will enjoy the week and please be safe and be careful, and we'll see you all back here in another week or two. Bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.